somebody is telling you that they're going to unalive themselves if you break up or leave, you need to do one of two things. First of all, that is a manipulation tactic, so don't lean into it. If it's over a phone call or text message, you need to contact friends or family that you know can get over there or reach out and let them know that you've done so. If it's in person, you need to call 911, 000, whatever the emergency number is in your country, so that you can let them know that professional help is on the way. If they mean it, then they have the help and support around them when these people turn up. And if they don't, they're going to have an uncomfortable conversation with either friends, family, or paramedics. And yes, I do empathize with yourself or with the other person because these situations can be very triggering. But using this particular phrase in this particular situation is just manipulation. And the only person that you need to look after ensuring that they will be okay, is you. If you are choosing to leave the situation or leave the relationship, your duty of care to that person is finished once either professional help or friends or family can step in. Some people might even say that the duty of care isn't yours in the first place. I like to think that we should do what we can for other humans, even if they are in a bad spot and are trying to manipulate you.
Verywell Health defines manipulative behavior as referring to a person's use of gaslighting, love bombing, and other styles of interaction in a relationship used to gain power or influence over another, which can include attempts to damage another person's emotional and mental well-being. Manipulation has increasingly become part of discussions of mental health and healthy relationships, not only within romantic partnerships, but between family members, friends, and workplace situations. As a result, there's been more recognition of when a situation is untenable or unhealthy. But it has also made it harder to object when therapy speak and external validation are used by manipulators to maintain control. For example, threats of ending one's life are not uncommon on the cusp of change. Whether it comes from a romantic partner on the precipice of a breakup or from a family member who is not getting their way, those who utilize this threat are aware of the power they wield by doing so. Although it is important to appropriately respond to mental health crises in a compassionate manner, the use of this threat as a way to control others has been increasingly recognized by mental health professionals and organizations. There is a difference between signs of an approaching mental health crises and someone using your fear of that outcome to get what they want. Futures in Mind, a charity which focuses on reducing the stigma of mental illness, reports that the use of suicide threats to manipulate others often stems from a place of deep emotional distress and a feeling of powerlessness. The individual making the threat may be struggling with serious mental health issues, including depression, borderline personality disorder, or other emotional regulation problems. For them, the threat of suicide feels like a means to express the depth of their distress, to regain control, or to avoid abandonment.
So when he first came out, like I said, he didn't give me any time to process it. He didn't discuss it. He told me this is how it's going to be. I asked him to slow down. At the time, in my head, I was trying to save the family, which I thought was the right thing at the time. And it was hard to comprehend something like that, especially because I had nothing to suspect that type of announcement. He must have done a very good job hiding, or I was very naive and distracted with a baby. So I asked him to slow down, and that was just out of the question. He threw the standard, if you don't allow this, I will have to kill myself. That's my only option in life now. It's either I live as a woman or I can't live at all, and you'll be responsible if you don't let me do it. Very manipulative now that I look back, but you have to understand when you're in the thick of it, it's very, very different, the mental state. I'm a lot better now, and it was a very difficult 2.5 years. So like I said, he already had a whole new wardrobe stashed away elsewhere. He had prosthetic body parts that he would, wear under his clothes.
Trans widows, referring to the wives of men who decide to identify as female, have noted the use of suicide as leverage to receive support. However, cries about the male mental health crisis seem to ignore that many men use suicide as a way to avoid consequences for their actions or to regain control of a situation. Rather than being the result of overlooked depression, a 2022 study found that 60% of victims had no documented mental health conditions. Further, males without a history of mental health issues died more frequently by firearms than those with no mental health issues, and many were found to have alcohol in their systems. It's easier to frame the mental distress of men in general as a problem women must solve via validation, emotional coddling, or sex. Of course, the distress that wives would feel if forced to not only support their husband's transition and massive changes to their lives, but also validate this choice is typically ignored. After all, women are expected to capitulate to the whims of everyone else. Do you think they
And
hold some resentment against you for not going along with it and trying to remain one happy family?
oh, yes. Yes. My older son has literally said it would have been so much easier for us. And what I wanted to say to him, but I didn't, because I felt it would hurt him, I would have said, well, do you want a mother who's alive? Just like with that, they say, do you want a dead son or a living daughter, right? To the parents, right?
Right.
I wanted to say to my son, well, did you want to have a mother at all? Or did you want me to drive, did you want him to drive me to jump off a bridge somewhere?
You might find this similar to when you talk to women who were in abusive relationships. When you're in it, you don't realize it. It's after you've left that relationship and you look back, you when you have that overview and the hindsight, you see, oh, maybe that was a red flag that I missed at the time. He wasn't very his excitement for the pregnancy didn't seem genuine. Now looking back, I didn't notice it at the time. I thought he was excited at the time, but looking back, perhaps I see that it wasn't particularly exciting. In fact, what excited him was that he liked the attention that came to him because of the pregnancy. But if it actually had to do with me, he didn't enjoy that part. So,
This is why it is often so hard for women to leave their transitioning partners. Not only are they pressured by their husbands, but they are punished and bullied into accepting these changes by friends, family, and greater societal institutions.
no, no, not at all. This is what they say has piqued me. Honestly, before that, I was very naive, perhaps like the majority, and which is why I do have some level of sympathy for some people who don't understand, because I didn't understand. I thought it was a very small group of people that had this massive conflict within that they've experienced forever, and I thought they're very vulnerable, which is what the narrative is. I thought they're very discriminated against. I thought their lives were hard, and after my experience and being obviously watching him and watching the new people that he hang out with, which I don't have, very deep involvement with, but I see because he's got a new boyfriend and all the rest of it. That narrative is just completely false. It's the opposite. It's absolutely the opposite. He's had nothing but support here, and not just from family and friends, but institutions, the legal system, his work. He got promotions after coming out. So absolutely, it's completely false to say that all these individuals are so oppressed and marginalized.
In these cases, it is still possible to leave and to avoid being dragged into a cycle of emotional abuse, even if it is difficult. However, for parents, it can feel impossible to balance a rational response with the emotional one elicited by their child's distress. Parents are often told by mental health professionals, doctors, and reputable organizations that to offer anything but unconditional support could lead to their children ending their own lives.
In 3 months, they're getting injections for testosterone. I was trying to explain it to my dad, but then like he kind of claims that he looked into some of the side effects and claims that my sibling knows some of the side effects. But I mentioned the cast review and the WPATH files to him, and I mean, I I don't doubt that maybe he's read this, but he's just I don't know. That's just why like it'd be unusual for him to have not. Is kind of what I'm thinking about because I know he would like, but I feel like he is just kind of pressured to not question it. I don't know. That's really what I think is happening because just it was like 4 suicide attempts, and it really scared him because like you know rushing her to the ER and just it put a lot on him because because one of his biggest regrets was when his friend years and years ago committed suicide. And he's talked to me about how he can really never forgive himself for that.
Headlines routinely impress the danger that trans-identified people are in. An article published by The Guardian claims that a second-term Trump is likely to use the U.S. government to launch a catastrophic rollback of LGBTQ+ rights. But, truthfully, only covers a rollback of policies allowing minors to access cross-sex hormones, which are not safe and often prescribed without addressing other causes for gender dysphoria, or taking into account the lack of longitudinal research of efficacy of treatment.
All of the things we're talking about, no men and women sports, no gender operation. I mean, these operations, it's crazy.
Who's this man? That's former US President and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. Oh, he's the transgender operations on illegal aliens viral guy. Precisely. So does he support gender-affirming care or does he not? So his viral quote was actually criticism to Kamala Harris's support for taxpayer-funded medical care for trans people. I'm assuming he's not a fan. Well, Trump has spoken out extensively against gender-affirming care, particularly for minors. Oh, but that's not a big concern for most US citizens though, is it? He's also insisted that children are undergoing transition-related surgery during their school day, a claim that has been widely debunked. So what is he proposing? He has said that he would forbid federal agencies from promoting the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. Okay. I'm taking notes. He also wants to block gender-affirming medical care for trans people in federal healthcare programs such as Medicare. Oh, that's why he was saying that. Let me watch that clip again.
Many reports on the upcoming election, or any laws restricting transitioning for minors, is routinely reported on as affecting the LGBT community when, truthfully, those who are same-sex attracted are completely unaffected by rules against hormone use for minors. The only impact that those laws have on homosexual and bisexual people stems from the pushback received due to forced teaming in the alliance of queer-identified people with the gay liberation movement. This builds upon incorrect statistics about high murder rates, hate crimes, and general hatred from the greater public, creating an environment ripe for radicalization and fear. Perhaps if children who are gender nonconforming, gay, or dealing with mental illness are not told that their choices are drugs or death, they will be able to push through.
First off, cultural genocide is definitely a form of genocide. When Native Canadian children were removed from their parents' homes and put into residential schools in order to whitewash them and to assimilate them into white culture, it was a form of genocide. Now, on top of that, loads of those children were also actually unalived as part of this residential school treatment. But even if it hadn't been the case, that would still have been a form of genocide. So the attempts at destroying queer culture by banning drag shows, banning transition, both socially, medically, and legally, is a form of cultural genocide. Now, on top of the cultural genocide that is undeniably happening against the queer community in quite a few countries around the world, there is also legitimate fears against a possible physical genocide against trans people. Because unaliving people in concentration camps does not happen overnight. There is what is known as the 10 stages of genocide that has been put together by the Holocaust Memorial and that has been seen to be repeated by multiple types of genocides across the world. Out of these 10 stages, it is very clear that the UK is on stage 6 and that the US is possibly on stage 7. I don't have the time in a TikTok video, even in a 10-minute TikTok video, to go through the different stages and why the UK is on stage 6. But the very existence and very prominence of the trans debate in the UK media is undeniable evidence that we are on a stage polarization. If you are interested, I can do a longer video as a series that I can upload going through all the different stages and how the UK has met the criteria for every single one of those, up to stage 6. Extermination, by the way, is on stage 9. So yes, that is why we are talking about a trans genocide.
As stories of detransitioners come out and long-term studies are completed on the results of transitioning, many are losing their faith in medicine, particularly in psychiatry.
So I should, maybe I should also add with my story, my ex-husband at the time, he got hormone treatment pretty quickly as well. So there was a very, very it was very easy to access. It was 1 or 2 GP visits. And because that was within straight after he told me he was this new person, he had already doctor's appointment booked for the coming weeks. So even though our marriage was kind of very shaky at the time, we were still married, and I was talking to him, and he got hormone treatment within a matter of 4 weeks ish. And he didn't need any special evaluations. It was informed consent, is what he told me. It's based on informed consent model, and so he started that very soon. So there was no baby steps. There was definitely no baby steps. It was very, and that's I don't know how much he's done behind my back over the years, because it was all new to me. So it was very, very quick.
Oh, yes. Yeah, parental alienation. And the shocking thing is that it is sanctioned and, I say, ritualized and sanctified by the therapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists who refuse to admit that what they are recommending to those individual patients is damaging society. They also don't want to know, unless you are that wife who says, right, we're lesbians now. I like kink and I like equipment in bed, and I'm interested in watching this sort of violent pornography, and it's like I actually sat there in one session with one of my now ex-husband's diagnosing therapists. In my memoir, I call her Ruth the Charlatan, because this also opened up a whole new field of people who didn't need to be certified in anything. The surgeons were accepting, there was a primary letter that had to be from a PhD psychologist or a MD psychiatrist. And they were supposed to have, according to, the Blanchard protocols, to go for the surgery, which my then husband did it all in 1995. And so, and the thing is, these surgeons aren't working, with the people. I mean, we were in New York. He flew out to California and had the surgeries done. He went for 5 weeks and had everything all at once. The breast implants, the bottom surgery, and we were already separated. But the surgeons, so therefore the surgeons can be way far away, thousands of miles away, and they're presented with these 2 letters. And what I found out is, or 3 letters, I guess it used to be. I don't know if anything really is required anymore, but there was the letter from the PhD psychologist, who is still in practice doing all of this in New York City. And the non-certified Ruth the Charlatan, I had a session with Ruth the Charlatan because I felt that I needed to go and have this in-person time with her so that she could understand straight from the horse's mouth that the wife is not interested. Like Nettie went to them because they advertised themselves as the therapists who convince the wives that now you're a lesbian and you need to stay together in this marriage and you need to see your husband through a so-called second adolescence. She literally used that phrase.
Although trans rights activists claim that it is a difficult path to be prescribed hormones, the truth is that it is unfortunately easy. Detransitioners are often blamed for not knowing better, but when trans-identified people are clinging to the claim that poor health is a valid trade-off for cross-hormone use, it is nearly impossible to get accurate information on the impact of hormone use on one's body. Catastrophic organ failure and slow debilitation are nothing. Obviously, validation is more important. Of course, becoming your true self requires surgeries, hormones, a new wardrobe, and the unconditional support of everyone around you. At its core, transgender identity requires the manipulation of those around the person in question to play along, under threat of the trans-identified person's safety or societal pressure. Either way, it's not exactly freely chosen. This, dear viewers, is where we part. I'm having a hard time breathing because of high blood sugars again, so I'm a little bit out of breath during this video. Hopefully it wasn't too distracting. I was going through some of the audio from the interviews I've been doing over the past couple weeks, and I've noticed this trend. And I know that interviews without video footage are not for everyone, so I wanted a chance to be able to put in some of those audio clips here, so that those of you who prefer regular style videos could still hear those insights, because I found them to be very disturbing and to be forming a pattern that I wish I had academic funding to further explore. Anyhow, if you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.